Because I look at people and I was like, you were dumb enough to do it. Deal with it.
Facebook is drama. It's high school drama. It really is. How many pastors have gotten in trouble because of Facebook?
Yeah. Right.
How many marriages got in trouble with Facebook?
Right.
I don't do Facebook.
I was helping with the youth one day. I looked around. I thought, my pacemaker's older than every kid in here. You know? Yeah.
I think a lot of Americans, even, dare I say, American Christians, I say that loosely, will sell their souls to maintain a lifestyle if it comes down to that. And that, I think, is very dangerous.
One of the things that Verna and I have done over the years when we find ourselves in difficult situations is that we will go through the litany of the various times that God has helped us. And we express those out loud to each other, and they serve as a reminder to us that God was through us in this situation, and this situation, and this situation. What makes us think he's not going to be with us in this one as well?
The next week after that first state championship game, they joined the church. And their words were this: you cared enough to drive 6 hours for a kid that's not yours. That tells me something.
Hi, I'm Chris McNeil, and this is Ministry on the Move, a podcast interviewing pastors and ministers across the USA. As the father of the McNeils, I get to travel across the country singing the gospel, and one day it occurred to me that you all need to know each other. You are a part of the extended McNeil family and the body of Christ. Join me on a journey to churches of all shapes and sizes, different parts of the country, and see just what it takes to shepherd the body of Christ. For more information on the McNeils, you can visit us at mcneilmusic.tv or mcneilmusic.com. Thanks for joining us, and here's the episode. Hey everyone, this is Chris. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to release the entire interview, and oftentimes our conversation sort of weaves back and forth, and it makes a nice break. I thought on this one, more than many of the others, that the conversation was sort of focused in a direction, and I didn't want to break the flow of the conversation. So this is a long episode. I think it's about an hour and 20 minutes, all said and done. So I hope you'll forgive the length, but wanted to let you know that up front. So today I'm interviewing Nathan Mathias, who is the campus pastor at Woodland Baptist at Mason Creek, and is a subset of another church that meets down the road about 10 minutes. And so I found this an interesting conversation from the administration of the church and how it works with different locations, and thought that they did a good enough job that this was worth sharing. So all that said, I sure appreciate you giving it a like, a review maybe on Apple or iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to the podcast. You help us out so much when you share this with other people and help spread the word. So thanks for being a part of the McNeil extended family, and here's the episode. Hey everyone, this is Chris McNeil, Ministry on the Move. Today my guest is Nathan Mathias, who is the campus pastor of Woodland Hills, which is outside of Longview, Texas. And Nathan, you and I met, I'm thinking in 2016, 17? Where did we first meet? Was it at Spring Hill?
Yes, we met at Spring Hill Missionary Baptist.
It was a Christmas concert. Yeah. And gosh, we'll be back there in a couple of weeks to kick off the Christmas year. And so do you remember what year it was in?
16 or 17, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And you guys were then at a church in Diane? Boy.
Just small town.
Right, yeah. And then since then, you've had something of a major upgrade. This is a big church. So the main campus seats, how many people in that auditorium? 1,000?
1,000, yes, sir.
And then at your facility?
It can fit 250.
Okay.
Fire code.
Right. Yeah. We want to keep the fire marshal happy, especially if he's a member of the congregation. Yeah. So I want to. Well, all right. Here we go. We'll just hop down the rabbit hole. But we've known each other now for apparently 6 or 7 years, and this will be probably the 10th or better time that you've seen the McNeils, either because you've gone to Spring Hill, or because you've had us to your church or churches, and I think tomorrow morning is going to be the third time here
Should
at
be the
Woodland.
third. Yep.
And then we're doing I Love My Church banquet tomorrow night. Is that what it's?
Well, that's what y'all did last time y'all were with us. This time it's a Thanksgiving banquet.
Oh, that's right.
We call it the Agape Feast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, but we've been reminiscing all day about the I Love My Church banquet
Right.
that y'all did last year for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm getting old and decrepit. My memory isn't what it used to be, so forgive me for that.
It's all good.
So I'm really interested in this whole notion of a satellite church to a main campus and the dynamics that go along with that. So, I mean, even as we sit down and do this interview, you and I are actually at the main campus, and we went and we sound checked to sing at the main campus for tomorrow morning, and then we'll sing for 15 minutes, hop in a van, and drive over to your campus, which is 10 minutes away,
yes.
if we're obeying the speed
Yes.
limit, and then we'll sing there. And then we're going to come back and do another few songs in the second service here at the main campus. Then we're going to break down and we're going to go to, I guess, the high school for tomorrow evening. Is that
Yes.
what we're doing? Okay. And so what that tells me is that even though you guys are in two physical locations, you all are tight. You are a part of the staff here
Yes.
at the main campus. You're the pastor of the satellite campus, and then tomorrow night we're all going to come together as one big church.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you kind of talk about how that came to be and how you found yourself? Let's start there. Let's start small. How did you find yourself in this role, and what were the challenges, because you had been the pastor of a previous church?
Yes. So, wow. See, how much time we have for this? I don't know if we have enough time.
You've got a lot of time. There's a buddy of mine up in, hey Chad, up in Missouri, who's going to tell me that it doesn't bother him for these things to go an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I started off the church out in Diana.
Mm-hmm.
I was there right. I think I had just hit that 5-year mark. And the last year I served as interim pastor because the pastor had left to go to a different ministry.
And you started there as a youth minister, is that right?
I did. And every year it felt like I got I still have yet to figure out if it was a promotion or a demotion, because I went from youth and worship minister to associate pastor to interim pastor.
Right.
So I served there. There was a lot of good ministry going on. The last year I served as the interim pastor, man, now here's a disclaimer. I really swore that I was going to die a youth minister. I thought I was going to be in my 50s and 60s still being a youth minister, and then retiring. I loved youth ministry. I still love youth ministry. I guess I just I'd grown to the more older youth, but I fell in love with pastoral ministry that year. So my wife and I, man, we kind of started that journey of, am I supposed to give up youth ministry? And the only reason why I was doing worship ministry on top of youth ministry was because we didn't have a worship minister. I sang in choirs growing up, and I knew enough about music where I could conduct a choir and plan out services and things. But man, pastoral ministry just captured my heart. So from there, we transitioned. where I was going to go to seminary. Started at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and then we just did not have a peace about moving to Fort Worth. And so I left that church in January of 2020 and started seminary. And then, of course, everybody knows what 2020 is famous for. 3 months later, there was lockdown and everything else because of the coronavirus. So we just stayed planted in Longview, which is our hometown, both mine and my wife. So we stayed close to family, friends, all that. But I was without a church, so I kind of bounced around, filling in pulpit, things like that, because, again, I'm trying to pursue pastoral ministry. And several mentors, pastor friends, and just kind of heroes of the faith all said, you need to go talk to Charles Hunt at Woodland Hills Baptist Church. And I knew him by reputation. He had been, at that time, at Woodland Hills for about 15 years. And he's known as the pastor who led the church to build a church on top of the other church. Literally, while they are building the brand new sanctuary that we currently use, they stayed and they kept the doors open. And so they literally built the structure over the old sanctuary. So they would have to go through a little bit of construction to get to the sanctuary. And they never skipped a beat. God has used Brother Charles Hunt in tremendous ways we just celebrated his 20th year here. So his reputation I've always heard about. And so through mentors and connections, somebody reached out to him and said, hey, I'm gonna send you a young man. And then about that time, I sent him an email. Now, this was probably February of 2020 when I emailed Brother Charles. And we still joke about it today because apparently I was the intern that would not take no for an answer. Because it was, hey, yes, we'll get with you. Well, then guess what? Within a few weeks, March hit and COVID hit and everything else. So he's trying to lead a church through what to do during that transition. Meanwhile, I'm emailing him just about every 2 or 3 weeks. Hey, Brother Charles, I know we're in the middle of a crisis, but I'm still interested in learning. Because I literally just emailed Brother Charles, here's my resume. I have been out in ministry for 10 years, and I just want to learn how to be a pastor. And I literally, my email was, could I come and be your intern, your pastoral intern? I don't expect any pay. I don't expect anything else. If you get sick and tired of maybe kick me to the curb, no hard feelings. I just want to come and learn. And through a very, I'm sure on his end, it was an annoying process because I kept on. But he was so gracious with me. He brought me in May of 2020 and said, hey, I'll bring you on board as an intern. At that time, there was another man serving as the campus pastor of our Mason Creek campus. We had, through this COVID thing, we had merged back to one campus because it was very difficult to do 2 services at 2 different locations, all that. Brother Charles was one of those visionaries that did a parking lot service. And so, I came in towards the tail end of that. And when things started opening back up and everything else, part of my job was I was just learning every aspect of the church. I'd help in kids. If they needed help in kids, I'd help with youth if they needed help. I was all over the place. One of the things Brother Charles said was a good pastor knows every area of the church. So that's what he was trying to get me to do, was learn every area of the church, and I've done enough, but still just learning more. And so we got to that point where now we were transitioning into starting a Christian academy. And one of the staff members, the current at that time was the current campus pastor, he felt led to transition and become the principal of the academy. And that left a vacancy in the campus pastor position. And so when I heard he was leaving, I prayed about it, but I never felt right asking for that job because my mindset was I only came to Woodland Hills to learn as an intern. So I do not want to ask for it, don't want it, anything like that. The summer of 21, it was June. Brother Charles was driving the bus that was taking us in the youth ministry to youth camp. Now I'm just helping out. I'm just going as a sponsor. And my wife and I were actually sitting in the front seat of the bus right behind Brother Charles. And I remember it to this day. He just looks up in that mirror and he says, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." I thought he needed something, needed me to get him a drink or whatever. And I said, "Yes, sir." And so I kind of leaned over and he said, "I want you to pray about something." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "I want you to pray about being the campus pastor of our Woodland Hills at Mason Creek campus." And now inside of me, man, I was doing backflips. Like, man, that is what I desired. I loved, for that whole year I was here, I loved being here. To me, it was just kind of like God confirming this is an opportunity for me to be here. And so I just said, "Oh, well, trying to be holy."
Spiritual.
Spiritual. I was just like, "Oh, well, I'll pray about it." And he goes, "Well, pray about it." And he said, "I've been praying about it for a while." And he said, "I think the Lord brought you here for a reason." And I was like, "Okay." So I just said, "Well, Brother Charles," I said, "we're going to this week at youth camp." I said, "If you can give me a week to pray about it, Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't even hesitate. "Oh, yeah, no problem. You need to pray about it." "Yes, sir." Coming home, well, guess what? We're sitting in that front seat right behind Brother Charles as he's driving the bus. He looks up, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I knew what it was. And I just said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "What'd you decide?" I mean, right there on a bus, driving back from youth camp. And I just said, "Yes, sir." I said, I would be honored to. I really feel like the Lord has led in this opportunity. And I really feel like I need to be willing to walk through this open door." And he was like, "Great." And that was it. Like, that was the end of the conversation. The next couple of weeks, it was, he announced to the staff, "Hey, when John Paul Allen transitions to the principal position, Nathan's going to transition from pastoral intern to campus pastor." At that time, I was already pretty well adapted to our Mason Creek campus because part of my job was going over helping with services on Sundays and things like that. I had preached there a handful of times already. So I was starting to form a relationship with them. But that was and is Brother Charles's vision for Woodland Hills. One church, two locations. And it is something that is, I've never seen it operate before like this. I've seen churches that have satellite campuses, but they are very much, well, this is certain church, but it's a whole nother town away.
Right.
But it's their church plant.
Yeah.
They look the same, but they still operate as if it's its own autonomy. Woodland Hills doesn't quite do that. We are very much by definition one church. We do have two locations, and actually they're only I think 5 miles apart.
Right.
Which is what's kind of interesting about it. Woodland Hills, the Loop campus, our main campus, is kind of right on the edge of town. Actually, we're annexed from that town just to help with property build and things like that. But like literally, you walk across the street, you're in the city.
In the city limits. I noticed that on the way out.
Yes. But then you go to the Woodland Hills at Mason Creek campus, and it's literally on a farm to market road. It's really, the style of it's kind of more of a country church. Off on a highway, the back roads of a small town, because we're right where we are. We are literally 10 minutes from Longview, and we are 10 minutes from Hallsville. So we are kind of that halfway mark between them. So we're reaching more rural people compared to city people. And so that's where the vision for Woodland Hills was one church, two locations, where we can be the best of both worlds. It's definitely brought up not bad challenges, but challenges where we have to be very intentional with what we're doing. So we still have Brother Charles as our senior pastor, but then at the Loop campus we have a title position that is just pastor. handles a lot of responsibility, oversees a lot of the Sunday school stuff. To me, is more of the role of executive pastor or maybe associate pastor. Definitely the number 2, oversees everything, handles the day-to-day ministry, everything else too. Then we have children's ministry, youth ministry, preschool ministry, all with ministers in place. We have a worship minister with ministers in place. We have secretaries, custodial, and admin assistants, financial secretaries, all at our Loop campus. But then at Mason Creek, our Woodland Hills at Mason Creek campus, we still have Brother Charles, our senior pastor, and we still have Brother Case, who serves as our pastor, associate pastor, executive pastor, if you will. But because his responsibility is so much at the Loop campus, that's where I come in as the campus pastor. So I deal with a lot of the day-to-day ministry at our Mason Creek campus. I oversee the finances, make sure we're not overspending, answer and deal with all the Sunday school teachers and then different ministries that we have. We're more of a volunteer-driven ministry. It's me, a part-time admin assistant, a part-time worship minister, and then we have a preschool director that we pay a little bit of money to. I wouldn't even say she's part-time. She does a wonderful job, though. So she oversees all that. But then our youth and children's is really all volunteer-based. And then we're still doing women's ministry, still doing men's ministry, all volunteer-driven. All that stuff. So the goal was we replicate, and we are Woodland Hills to where we are just reaching where we're at. And in fact, FM 968 is just kind of our home base for everything. Where we're surrounded by is very rural, not farmers, but very country folk.
One of the things I wanted to sort of steer you, it's kind of where you're headed, is talking about the difference in the congregation, because the one strikes me as more city, I think, is the word that you used, and versus rural. And of course, I grew up in the city, but I've spent the last 25 years in the country, and God willing, I'll never go back. But that's a totally different issue. Talk about some of the differences between the two congregations, and then how you guys as a staff are trying to put that concept together where it's just really one church, but with two very different footprints.
Yeah. So that's what makes it challenging.
Yeah.
Communication between the campuses has to be the first thought on everything. We've learned, like if we're promoting something, today, for instance, we had a women's event called the Snowman Party at the Mason Creek campus, but out of the group that we had show up today, I would say 80% was from the Loop campus. So that's where promoting events, communicating events, whether through the website, bulletin, social media, emails. We use a program called Realm. All that stuff has to go between both campuses.
Right.
And so that's where the Loop campus is very, I guess because of the people, they're very tech-driven. Even the senior adults, like they'll check their emails. They're engaged. They like that style of communicating. But where I'm serving at for the majority of my ministry, even though we have almost the same age groups, now my campus is more, I would say, older. The Loop campus, I think, is well balanced. But Mason Creek, I think, is still more senior adult. And now when I say senior adult, I don't necessarily mean 70s, 80s, but our average age right now is in the upper 50s, lower 60s.
So old people like me.
I didn't say that.
No, but my children, what if they were sitting here?
Absolutely did not say that. I mean, like I started a young adults class for our 20 and 30-year-olds, and the first people that signed up were in their 50s. It's now like my Sunday school class I teach. We literally call it the mix because we have two 20-year-olds, three 30-year-olds, 2 or 3 40-year-olds, and then another handful of 50-year-olds, and then we even have a couple of people that are in their 60s and 70s.
Wow.
So the mix is really what we call it, and that's kind of how it's probably more 70-30 on as far as congregation wise, 70% being more older.
Yeah.
But we're still reaching, and then our young families, I mean, they're having babies, they're having young kids. So like there's a lot of growth in the church from that. But we've learned with our campus dynamic, they don't check emails. In fact, they don't even check Realm. They don't get signed up for it. They don't, it's weird. But you know how I communicate more with Mason Creek congregation? Facebook Messenger.
Oh, really? Huh.
It is so funny. I can't get them to check their emails, but they'll check Facebook Messenger app on their phone all day long.
Interesting.
But then like the Loop campus, we can put it in the bulletin. We can put it out. We can announce it. We can, put it all over Facebook. Hardly anybody will say anything about it. But we send them an email, boom, they got it, and they know about it,
What do you guys ever have? I'm thinking about, like visitors from this congregation show up at the other one, or vice versa, or even heart of the community go from one to the other. And I'm really curious if you have like homeless or indigent ministries that sort of make you guys communicate, make sure that you're communicating so that you've got the same story from campus to campus.
So we encourage the campuses to intertwine. And there is Easter, Christmas are typically modified services. So instead of having 2 services at our Loop campus and 1 service at Mason Creek, on those special days, Mason Creek is the early service while the Loop only has 1 service normally. So normally we'll have more Loop campus come and join us on Easter and Christmas special days because if they want to come to the early service, they'll join us.
You're the place, yeah.
And our worship minister and the Loop campus's worship minister work hand in hand. They're not identical services. In fact, any given Sunday, if any of the songs are the same, it's by accident. Well, I say by accident. It's the Lord leading them.
Right.
But very rarely do we ever do the identical services. Right. But one of the things that we've been doing is, especially as decisions have been made at both campuses, it doesn't matter the decision, any decision, one thing we've been trying to do is we've been trying to share and celebrate those decisions. And so one of the things we started doing was take pictures of the family or an individual, and in our, we call them Loop announcements, but it's just right before the service starts, there's just different screens that just, and one screen's like a list of birthdays, one thing's like an event ministry ministry event that's coming up, another one may be what we call vision building, which is like our building program at the Loop campus. So it just kind of reminds people to always be praying about that. There may be another slide about fundraisers or youth camp, or et cetera. And one of the things we do is we take these pictures of these individuals or families, and then we'll put up their picture with new members. And then we'll even put Loop campus and Mason Creek campus, and then it's shown that is identical between both campuses.
Yeah, right.
So Mason Creek gets to see the new members from the Loop, and then Loop gets to see new members from Mason Creek. And then we'll have we have Sunday nights where we don't have any services at Mason Creek. We may have like a Bible study in the afternoon or something like that, but or choir practice. But at 6 o'clock, there is not two different services. We come together at the Loop for one service, one location. Typically Sunday night, you don't have as much returners.
Sure.
But that's where we encourage that bridging the gap between the two. Sometimes we'll do it at Mason Creek. Sometimes we'll do it just at the Loop campus. The downfall of doing it only at the Mason Creek campus on those special nights, we don't have the equipment to live stream. And we have a big database of shut-ins that we are able to reach through live stream and things like that. So that's where the Loop campus being a larger campus, having that equipment, that availability, that ministry to reach those that are homebound and et cetera, we're just not quite able to do. So we have to make special accommodations when we do that. But that's where we've encouraged families and ministries and just lay people, go to Mason Creek one Sunday, see what God's doing at our Mason Creek campus. The joy is that Brother Charles preaches 9:30 on Sunday mornings, and then he'll come over to the Loop campus and he'll preach 10:45. So there are some people that their small group or life group, Sunday school class, whatever you may call it, may do something different, but they still want to hear Brother Charles preach. Or they're just one special Sunday, they want to catch that sermon, and so they'll come over and join us. So they get the best of both worlds. They get to experience what God is still doing, still hearing our senior pastor preach. And then some people we've learned, they come over and tried it just to see what was going on. But because we're a smaller campus, I mean, we're running, I think, average of 90 right now on a good Sunday morning. And for them to come over, they get to feel that intimacy of a smaller church.
Right.
Everybody knows your name. Everybody knows when somebody's not there. And I got another 4 or 5 people in our congregation. If you're gone, you better believe 8 o'clock Monday morning you're getting a phone call. But they love that. And so we've actually had this year a handful of families come over just to check it out, to see what God has been doing, and then they've stayed. And it started off with just them wanted to be encouraged to see what was going on, and then they just fell in love with it and wanted to be a part of it.
I'm sorry, remind me of the sound guy's name.
Kyle.
I know that. Kyle was telling me this morning, or this afternoon, that tomorrow morning, he said both of the services here would be pretty full.
Yeah.
What does a Sunday night look like? There's a lot of the reason I ask is not just to count numbers. There's a lot of churches out there that don't do it anymore because the numbers just don't work. There's a lot of them that are thinking about it.
Right.
So I'm curious.
So this is where we still have a full-fledged service on Sunday nights. In fact, we are very intentional with what we're doing on Sunday nights. So like we'll do a blended service. So we will start off with Brother Charles and a praise team leading out in hymns, and then our executive pastor, Brother Case, he will preach Sunday nights, and then he and his wife will lead in a praise and worship song after that for like a response time. And so Sunday nights are very intentional with, that's kind of our flow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, our worship ministers are doing praise team practice, youth choir, handbell choir. I guess handbells, not handbell choir, but they're doing all these rehearsals. And then we have a kids choir that meet, and then we also have like kids Bible drill that meets, and then we have like a youth Bible study that meets. And so where we still have that service to be very intentional with, we have all these other ministries and Bible studies, and then we run. It's a bus ministry. We call it Blast, and we run vans and buses through all these trailer parks, and we pick up the kids. We bring them back here, we feed them, and then we do Bible study with them and stuff. And so with if you add up the choir rehearsals and the kids and everything that's going on, there's probably any given Sunday 400 or 500 here.
That's a lot of people on a Sunday night.
It is. And then, of course, the moms and dads who are not involved with serving or volunteering, they're in the service and they're engaged. And then, of course, with our preschool, like we offer a full-fledged preschool even on Sunday night. So, you got that going on too. I mean, it is. I have never seen a church still have, and again, it's not about the numbers, but a lot of churches are getting away from Sunday nights because of the numbers.
I think it's about the viability of it. I think it's about the vibrancy of the church body, whether or not people are trying to check the box or if this is a real meaningful part of that family's life as to whether or not we want to spend all day together.
Yeah.
Are we just trying to hit the to-do list and make sure that church is part of it, and I want my kids to kind of know Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or are these our friends and our family and our loved ones and the people that we want to spend our life with?
Right.
I'm gonna shift gears, and then I'm gonna really shift gears on you. You guys. So I'm thinking about a church that'll go unnamed. It's in Missouri. And that pastor is laughing to himself right now. And he is, I don't want to use the word worrying. He is intentionally thinking through. He's a pastor of a growing church. And they've outgrown, they're exceeding 80% of their capacity on a Sunday morning. And so we've talked about, well, you've really got three options, right? You can do nothing. You can build a bigger building, or you can do two services, right?
Yep.
I don't know of another set of options. Maybe you do. I'd be interested to hear if you do. But his feeling, his position is that he doesn't want two churches meeting in the same building. And I've been a part of that. I know the feeling. When I was on staff, when I was your age, by the way, you're 31.
I am.
For those that can't see you. When I was your age and I was on staff at First Baptist Church in Garland, we had 4 services, a traditional contemporary going on at the same time, followed by the flip of that, a traditional and a contemporary going on at the same time. They were just in different locations. And Sunday school to choose from in the middle of all that. And so you would pass people in the hallway and go, oh, I didn't realize you still went to this church. Well, we go to the traditional service, or we go to the contemporary. Now, this has been 30 years. This is back before Chris Tomlin was sainted. This is right in the heart of the music. It's okay to laugh. This is at the beginning of the music wars.
Right.
But I don't think that the problem has gone away. As churches grow, this problem is still facing churches.
Right.
How do you grow without breaking the fellowship between those members in the church? Because some of them, even if the service is the same, and you guys do it pretty much here at the main campus, you guys do the same service both. No, you don't. It's not even, because you have a different pastor in the morning, right? Is he preaching the same sermon?
No.
Okay, so it's 2 different services.
Yeah. And so that
3 if you count the Mason.
Yes. So that is where for years, and now I can only recollect the last 4 years because that's when since I've been on staff. But I have always heard, so Mason Creek was established in 2018. So since 2018, there has been a service at the Loop campus and a service at Mason Creek. And since 2018, Brother Charles has always preached at the Loop and at Mason Creek. Well, God has been blessing Woodland Hills, and so the Loop campus, main campus, has been growing exponentially. And so one of the things, like you said, the 3 answers, one of the things that they decided to do after praying about it was have 2 services. So they did an 8:15 service at the Loop campus. Then they did the 9:30 service out at Mason Creek, and then they did a 10:45 service at the Loop campus. And for the longest time, Brother Charles was preaching all 3 services.
Right. I remember. In fact, I think the first time that we were here, he was doing that.
Yes. Now, this year, he is 71 years old, and he would still be preaching all 3 services. The difference was the end of last year, end of 2023, we were met with a very unique problem. It wasn't that we were running out of space in our services. We were running out of space in our Sunday school classes.
Wow.
Because we would do a 8:15 service, a 9:30 Sunday school, and a 10:45 service at the Loop campus.
Oh.
So we had 2 hours of worship, but we only had 1 hour of Sunday school. And we could not get anybody to do an 8:15 Sunday school, because the hope was to get everybody to do 10:45 service. That way you weren't having to do all that. Well, as we as a staff been praying through what to do, Brother Charles said, unless we build a new sanctuary, which is still his goal. I love his vision. I've never met a pastor with a vision like him. He still says in 5 to 8 years, we're going to build another sanctuary. That way we can get back to 1 service at the Loop campus. But for now, to accommodate the Sunday school class dilemma, what we've been praying through is move the 8:15 to 9:15. And so now, since January of 2024, we have had a 9:15 service at the Loop campus, and then we've had 9:30 Sunday school, and then we've had a service at 10:45 with a 10:45 Sunday school. And so it literally allowed us to double our Sunday school classes. So majority, probably 80-85% of our Sunday school classes, now 1 hour has 1 class, and then the next hour has a different class, just to accommodate the size and everything. And so with that, it meant Brother Charles either could not preach the 9:15 service or could not preach the 9:30 service, because you can't be at 2 places at once.
Right.
One of the things that Brother Charles, and 100% I agree with, he did not want to simulcast the service.
Right.
You have a lot of these satellite campuses,
Yes.
they will take the early recording or early service, whatever, they'll record it, and then they'll send the stream over to the next campus, and then so they'll have their preacher on a screen. And if it works for them, great. It wasn't going to work for us.
I think that so many families kind of wound up doing that, or churches wound up doing that unintentionally or otherwise during COVID lockdown. And we're still seeing the fallout from people just going,
It's easy.
I can sit in my jammies and watch church, or maybe I'll just
Right.
lay in bed, and then the body of Christ doesn't really meet together. We're just kind of
There.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not much different. So I'm kind of with you on that one. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I mean, but that's exactly right. So, like, we've had some special guests this year. We had Dr. Charles Lowry. He came and did the Loop campus, and then he did a special conference that night for us. Incredible, absolutely incredible marriage conference. But same dilemma. For him to be able to minister to our Mason Creek campus, he couldn't be at 2 places at once.
Right.
So for that special week, we did simulcast. It went well. And then we had, at another date, we had Answers in Genesis come and join with us.
Right.
And I cannot remember the speaker's name. He, again, did a phenomenal job. Answers in Genesis, absolutely phenomenal ministry.
Yes, it is.
So same thing. That morning, could not be in 2 places at once, so we simulcasted, and then that night did a special conference for us. In those special instances, we were able to simulcast, and it worked for the Mason Creek campus.
Sure.
But if we were to do a normal service, it wouldn't go over well.
Right.
In fact, the second time we did it, which was with Answers in Genesis, everybody enjoyed it because they didn't have to miss out. But there was, of course, there's always somebody, but there was a handful of people that was just like, this isn't going to be our norm, is it? And it was like, no. This was just special. Like, we didn't want Mason Creek to miss out.
Sure.
But the best part was that night with the conferences, we had a good showing from Mason Creek, joined with the Loop. So again, it was that morning, we may have been 2 locations, but still one church. That night, we were one church at one location. So it made that intimacy even better. But that was one thing Brother Charles didn't want to do. And so when we moved to have 2 services, one at 9:15, one at 10:45 at the Loop campus with 2 different life group hours, he turned to Brother Case and said, I want you to pray about preaching the 9:15 service. And because he's like me, with his position, he teaches Sunday school class. And so he was able to make his Sunday school class 10:45.
Oh, yeah.
And then he preaches at 9:15. And that allows him to have some pulpit time, sharing and ministering to the congregation. And then Brother Charles still preaches at 10:45. And they normally don't talk. I mean, they talk about their sermons, I'm sure, but they normally don't preach the same sermon. Brother Case currently has been walking through the Gospel of Luke, while Brother Charles just started a series in Revelation. But the cool thing is that Brother Case uses his sermon and will do discussion questions, and he'll send them out to all the small group teachers for the 10:45 hour. Because ideally, those that are in Sunday school 10:45 will go to the 9:15 service and then go to Sunday school. So they can even have discussion over his sermon to help unite Sunday school classes and things.
Yeah.
So that helps kind of bridge that gap too. But there was a couple times where I don't know if I jokingly called it musical chairs. So I preached 9:30 at Mason Creek. Brother Case preached 10:45 at the Loop, and then Brother Charles preached 9:15 at the Loop. And so they just swapped. And then I had an opportunity to preach at Mason Creek, and I preach. I don't know, about every 4 to 6 weeks, I think is what it ends up being. And we'll have that opportunity out at Mason Creek. But there was 2 particular Sundays this year where I knew I was preaching. They did their musical chair swap, and we didn't really discuss what we were preaching on. Those 2 particular Sundays, we preached the exact same scripture. Now, because of that, it was generally the same topic, but our points were different. And the first time it happened, we did not know until church members started pointing it out on Monday.
Oh, interesting.
Because church members started talking, and they were like, oh, well, Brother Nathan said this, and well, Brother Charles said this, and well, Brother Case said this. And then they were like, what? Oh, they must have preached the same sermon. Well, the Loop campus has theirs recorded and streamed, and they went back and looked at theirs and saw that they were different sermons.
Wow.
And then when they were talking to congregation members out at Mason Creek, they were like, oh, no, Brother Nathan's points were this, this, and this. And like, wouldn't even complete. I mean, it was the same topic. It just, we approached it differently.
Right.
So that was really neat. And when that first happened, because church members were pointing it out. And then the second time it happened, I did cheat a little bit. I texted both of them, and I said, and I texted them individually. And I said, what are you preaching on? Or what do you feel led to preach on? Whatever. And they both told me it was not the same scriptures, but it was the same topic. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And well, then I already had a sermon ready and done, and it, again, was a completely different scripture, but the same topic.
Wow.
So it just, again, our approach on things. So it was real neat in that moment, knowing that even though we were different hours, different services, it still came together and brought unity between our campuses without really us even planning on that.
Right.
That's just kind of the way the Lord's been working between and intertwining our campuses.
Is it in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, Romans? Paul says there's one faith, one hope, one baptism, one God and Father of all. I think the notion of having separate campuses with one church is a testament to that, and what you just relayed is a testament to that. Talk about being a co-member with other staff, and I'm sure that there are times when we're all human, and everybody, how old did you say Charlie was?
71.
Yeah. And so there are ways that we can all step in and help. And I'm aware of some things that you and Stephanie have been going through here recently that would maybe cause you to lean on the staff a little bit more. Talk about it not from a congregational standpoint, but from a co-pastorate standpoint.
So that's where communication has to be the key, key to everything. That's where, again, the kind of the dynamics of the people we're reaching comes into play. Where we're located, we have a lot of trailer parks around us. There is a lot of drugs. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of difficulty. So we're reaching people that probably would not make their time necessary at the Loop campus. Just completely different types of people. But then, we'll have an event, and we had trunk or treat. So Mason Creek did it on Halloween night. The Loop campus did a trunk or treat style. We call it a Thrill on the Hill. We have a 2-story children's building, and so they literally went trick or treating through all the classrooms of the 2-story children's building.
Okay.
Set up just like trunk or treat. Everybody decorated a door. They'd knock on the door, trick or treat, yada yada yada, give the candy, whatever. It was awesome. Really really cool. So myself and my wife, and then Brother Dale, our worship minister, and his wife, came over that Wednesday night, and we were just participants. We actually were working the front gate. I say front gate. We were kind of just the welcoming committee. But it was neat. So we had Mason Creek staff be integrated in with the Loop campus staff for helping put on this event. We always have this thing because we have staff members with young families. So we try to, where they help with a lot of the prep stuff and then the takedown stuff, but during the event, they're able to be with their families.
Oh, right, sure.
During that time.
Yeah.
My wife and I don't have kids yet, and then we have some older members that their kids are grown, older staff members that their kids are grown. So again, there's enough staff where during the event we can still work it and operate it. But what was neat was that Wednesday, the October 30th, we had all the staff from both campuses coming together, helping put this on, and then we had volunteers from both campuses coming together, help put it on. Now, Wednesday night was more Loop campus volunteers, but it just, that unity, that camaraderie of we are one church, we're one staff, we're doing this one event. But then the very next day, out at our Mason Creek campus to give another option for trick-or-treating, we put on trunk or treat. And we had a couple of our staff members from the Loop come over and offer up a vehicle, and then just be here just to kind of work the crowd. And I mean, it was neat having those members. It was neat us coming together for that Wednesday, but it was even neater, if that's even the word, for them to take an extra day to come over and join with us and just to love on those people. That is one of those things where when somebody from the Loop campus that's serving comes over and just loves on people or starts building a relationship or forming a relationship, it leaves a great impression because they know technically that staff member doesn't have to make an effort to come over here.
Right.
them choosing to makes it all worth it.
Yeah. If you're at your church, then you're on the clock. If you're not at your church, at your campus, I should say.
Right.
If you're at your campus, then it feels like you're on the clock, as it were.
Yeah.
But if you're going to the other one, then it's free will.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have watched, Mason Creek will host very specific events throughout the year just to help bring the Loop campus over to Mason Creek. Most of the years, we always put on a big 4th of July that we're farther out of the city so we can get away with shooting more fireworks, things like that. But most of the time, I Love My Church banquet is hosted at Mason Creek. Agape Feast is hosted at the high school that's down the road from Mason Creek. So again, it brings a lot more kind of awareness to where we are. But during those events, I have watched the Loop campus staff members make a point to go to the Mason Creek members. I mean, we all are Woodland Hills, but I have watched the Loop campus staff make a point and go all the way opposite of the room just to say hello, how are you doing, and greeting Mason Creek members. Because they understand the importance of we are one church, two locations, that gap is bridged. And then what is really cool is that every so often I've had an opportunity to preach on Sunday nights. And so there was a couple times where Mason Creek, man, they showed out. And a lot of it was, and the joke was, well, yeah, our pastor was preaching tonight. But then it was just that I guess in a good way, that pride of, because in those times it was our worship minister got to do the music, and then I had an opportunity to preach. So it was almost like Mason Creek took over the evening service.
Yeah, sure.
And that was the joke, but it was cool because there was a lot of pride in, man, these are the ministers who minister to me that get to do this.
Let me say that in a different way. Let me try and see if I understand what you're saying in a different way. I know what you mean in saying that the people of that campus, sort of well up and are cheering you on and wanting you to do great. But it seems to me that there's an even bigger sense of real humility in that we're not here. We're willing to come to this other church, not just because it's our pastor, but because we're all Christians and we're celebrating this together, in spite of the fact that we could be territorial or divisive.
Yeah.
That we're sort of overcoming that, and so in one sense, it seems to me. I mean, I love the we've got spirit. Yes, we do. We've got spirit. How about you? Aspect of it, and that's fun, and that's probably really, really important. But I also see another necessity that when you come together, you're not elevating one pastor over the other. That you're all pitching in, and you're doing what it. Oh, you're sick. Hey, I'll take care of it. Or this is a big celebration. Let's do it at this church instead of this one, where it would maybe make more sense. Or doing what seems contrary to the way the world would look at it, as if it were a stock price that we were trying to increase. And really, all we're trying to do is make much of Jesus, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you said earlier, and that is, it seems like you guys have a really vibrant children's and youth ministry and young adult ministry, which is not normal in this day and age. I can't tell you the number of churches that McNeil's have been in where the youth group is 3 people. Or the young marrieds are literally non-existent.
Right.
And so you've got the pastor's kids that are 3 teenagers or 2 teenagers, and then the other family with 1, and then you've got 50 and up. And we look around sometimes and say, we're the 20-year-olds, we're the 30-year-olds, we're the 40-year-olds. But you guys seem to be doing that well. What can you talk to? How do you see that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that you guys attract a younger generation, and not that is the goal.
Right.
I like what you said earlier about it being balanced. I really think that's a sign of a healthy church. I think it's amazing when you've got 20, 30, and 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds in the same Sunday school class. So your mixed class really strikes home with me. But in order to do that, you have to have the 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds. Why do you think that you guys have done well in that area?
I think just meeting people right where they're at. That's kind of one of the things that we're across the board we're trying to do. Like we have a thriving preschool ministry, we have a thriving children's ministry, we have a thriving youth ministry, and sadly, a lot of parents, they will go to a church because of what churches offer their kids. I fully believe if whether a church has a children's ministry or youth ministry, as long as it's preaching the Word of God and standing on the truth, it's worth going to.
Sure.
But that's where having a very thriving preschool children's youth, I think that helps not attract, but it helps connect the young adults. But when they are here, it's not like a 30-year-old is greeting and they see a 30-year-old and, oh, hey, let me bring you to a class. They walk in, they'll see a 30-year-old greeting with a 50-year-old greeting, maybe a 70-year-old greeting, or maybe the 50s and 60-year-olds are driving the golf cart or something like that. And so they're seeing how all ages, all generations are intertwined in everything. Now, like we have more classrooms at the Loop campus that are specific to, hey, these are our young adults. I mean, they are out of college, but they're not dating, they're not married, so this is our singles young adult ministry.
Right.
And then there are couples classes that are, hey, these are our 40s and 50-year-old couples. But all in all, everybody's welcome to every class. Everybody's welcome. I mean, obviously, if it's a ladies' class, it's strict ladies' class. Sure. But, I mean, even across the board, like I know Brother Case's Sunday school class has a very wide range of and varies of people, various stages of life. There are some people with preschoolers that are in that class, but then there's some people who are empty nesters.
Right.
And so I think it just the DNA of Woodland Hills is just to love and reach all people. And I think just from the time I've been here, it's been like that even before I've been here. But that's just kind of what we've seen and tried to replicate.
What do you think attracts them here, though? Are you guys going? Are you knocking door to door? Do you do campaigns? Is it word of mouth because somebody in their community really got on fire for the Lord? And
so, like every week we have what's called Evangelism Initiative, where we are. There are certain teams that don't like to what we call cold call. Uh-huh. They will go see a visitor. And they will share the gospel with them, invite them back to church, hear about their experience, etc. But there are some teams that they just straight up go random neighborhoods, door to door, things like that. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of church members that are actually bringing people to church. In fact, I got a young man, he is 36, 37, and he lives more in Hallsville, a small town out just 10 minutes away from our Mason Creek campus. And his heart for people, I mean, literally everybody he comes in contact with, he takes our visitor cards it just says, see you Sunday. And then on the back side of it has our service times, Sunday school times, and an address. And he literally just walks around. Like I was with him at Walmart one day and he passed out 20. I mean, he literally just walks up to strangers and was just like, hey, I want to invite you to my church. It's the best there is. I mean, that's literally what he says. And it's just like, but he says it with so gusto and joy because he believes it. Right. Like he loves the church. He and his wife will come up and they'll volunteer during the week because they want something to do. They don't want to not be at the church. Mm-hmm. And so he drives a Crown Vic, like old school. And so his daughter and his wife will come, and he got to the point where he was picking so many people up in his car. He was dropping his wife and daughter off at 8:30 on Sunday morning, going and driving another 30 minutes, getting another car full, dropping them back off and going back for a third car full. And so the joke was about the second week in a row that I noticed he was making multiple trips.
Right.
And he was driving out. So from Hallsville all the way to White Oak, which is a good 20-mile span. And I started joking with him about like, man, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm inviting all these people, but they don't have rides to church and they want to come to church. I'm going to go pick them up. And that's just, so we jokingly, his name's Timmy. We jokingly said, Timmy has a ministry. It's called the Tow Ministry. Timmy on Wheels. And he started picking up so many people to come to church because he's invited that many people. Because we have multiple church vans, I literally said, why don't you take the church van? And you drive to church. If your wife wants to go with you, great. If not, maybe take someone with you just in case. But and his wife goes with him every Sunday. And so they will start the van route at 8:30 in the morning and pick up people from a mile away to 20 miles away.
But they're not just picking up little kids, right? I
No,
mean,
these are grown adults that he's picking up.
So yeah, because that's important. That's an important distinction. There's a lot, and God love him, and I'm glad that we should be doing this. We should be going and picking up the young people whose parents won't bring them to church. I'm all for that.
Yeah, which we do that too.
Yeah, right. But we're talking about the 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds.
Yeah,
and Timmy is going out and picking. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just his heart for people. Like he is so. He desires so much to do that we have Recovery Alive on Monday nights, and he now volunteers, and that's what he does on Monday nights with Recovery. Well, what was called Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah, I've changed the name of it.
They did.
Okay.
At least at our church they did.
I see.
Same creator, just a little bit different program ministry. More focused on surrendering to Jesus than they still have 12 steps and everything, but. Anyway, yeah, they changed the name, and
more Christocentric. Is that what I'm?
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes. And so that again, same thing. His heart's to pick up people.
Yeah,
and so that's what he does.
Which was the disciple that did that? Is just every time you see him, he's bringing somebody to Jesus.
Yeah,
right. I think that's humbling. You know, we literally travel from church to church to remind people about Jesus.
Right.
That's not really the same thing as going and getting them in your own car and bringing them to church. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. Well, I asked him one day, because these people he's picking up are still at church. Many of them have actually joined the church now.
They drive themselves?
They're still not driving themselves. They're getting picked up. Yeah. But it is, it's kind of funny. 2 of them moved to Tyler, which is an hour away.
Oh, wow.
They did get a car or a truck. They're now driving themselves to church. They still come to our church, and they're an hour away. But it started with him picking them up. And what is incredible is that I was talking to him one day. I said, man, how are you still picking up these people? And he said, Brother Nathan, that's the thing. I'm not. And I said, yes, you are. You're taking the church van. You're going to get it. Like, you let me know how low the gas is. I make sure it gets filled up during the week so you can keep going out. He said, no, Brother Nathan, you don't get it. He said, I get them there. But what Jesus does in them is what keeps them there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I didn't even think about that. Like, even he gets that concept. And it's just like, man.
I think that's the faith of a little child.
Yeah.
That we're told to have. And it, as long as I've been doing this whole Christian thing, it's an indictment to see somebody who, because I overthink everything. I'll read a scripture and I'll wrap my head around the axle over it, right? And there are just those who just take it for what it says and live it. And I don't think the kingdom of heaven would be advancing without people like that.
Yeah.
You know, it'd probably do okay without people like me, but I don't think it would do. I don't think it would be okay.
Yeah.
Without people who just did what it said and take the Word of God at face value and just go live it.
Right.
What do you? I'm gonna really pull this out now. Not so much about Woodland. You're 31, golly. Let's say that the Lord gives you another 60 years on planet Earth. What do you think you're going to live through to see? What do you think? What do you think's in store for the church in the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years in your lifetime?
Jeez.
In America specifically. Now, and by the way, there are people listening to this podcast from Romania, Canada, Russia.
Yeah, and the American Christianity doesn't do them justice.
No, it doesn't. So I ask you that question, being mindful that there are Christians outside of these, this nation that perhaps put their life on the line, even just to listen to this. I don't know. Certainly to be called a Christian. So I'm asking that with the backdrop.
I think. I think with every passing day, we're one day closer to the Lord return. Mm-hmm. But I think it's going to have to be harder before He comes.
Yeah.
No, I hope it's not so. I hope it's we don't have to deal with all that. But I think in my lifetime, this is where the Lord almost baptized by fire. Mm-hmm. I think with a lot of the changes we've been having the last couple of years, abortion being legalized easily, homosexuality being legalized relatively easy. I think this is where there's going to be a line drawn in the sand where Christians are going to have to choose. Are we going to cower down, and are we going to play dead? Are we going to play that offensive card of, we don't want to offend people? And I think we forget Jesus came and brought division. Mm-hmm. He went against everything of the world. So I think in my lifetime, there is going to be more Christians in America that will compromise and that will not draw a line in the sand until things finally get so bad that for the few that stand on the Word of God, stand on the truth, and don't compromise, I think for those that won't cower down, for those that will stand true, I think for them, it will be like those that are overseas. We're going to get told you can't say that. And for the few, I think they're going to say, well, why? I don't think it's going to be in the next year or two.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't think it's going to be in the next 4 or 5 years, but I do think in my lifetime, because I have seen more I don't want your podcast to get flagged or anything, but I have seen.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I have seen more seminaries teach the new up and coming ministers and pastors. Don't be offensive. Don't lead people away. Like tell them things that are going to make them feel good. Seminaries are teaching that.
They need to read Paul.
Yes, there's not a lot of pastors still pastoring churches. And I use this phrase hellfire and brimstone, but I don't necessarily mean that style, but there's still not a lot of pastors now that are of that generation that would not compromise. Mm-hmm. And the problem was when you have weak leadership, it just continues to becomes weak down the ranks. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like there's going to be a generation of strong pastors, ministers, Christians that will draw that line in the sand and say, enough's enough. This is where we're going to make our stand. And I think when that happens, then we're going to see chaos. We're going to see the things being, no, you can't do that. And we're going to start seeing that. But what's so sad is that here in America, we don't experience that. We don't. I mean, what's the worst persecution we've ever faced?
Right.
A door being slammed on our face when we've knocked and said, hey, we want to invite you to church.
Somebody says bad things about you on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we had missionaries in Haiti that got found out about, and there were gangs that were threatening them, and we had to evacuate them, and we got every single one of them out. But I mean, literally, their lives were on the line, and they were saying over and over, no, we'll, there's still people we have to reach. There's still this, there's still that, and if it were not for the Lord confirming to them that they needed to go ahead and leave, they probably would have stayed and gotten caught and gotten killed. And that's just in Haiti. That's not that far from here. And that's not really a crazy country either. It's not like it's illegal. It just, gang members didn't like what was going on.
Isn't there a lot of voodoo there? No? Yeah. So it may not be politically passe, but it is certainly spiritually passe to be a Christian there. I would think. I think you and I have talked about it actually at one point, but I've really become aware of the reality of the kingdom of heaven and how different it is from the reality that you and I live in, and the spiritual warfare is actually a thing. It's not just a metaphor.
Yeah.
But that it is a real territorial, spiritual, good guys versus the bad guys thing. And I don't think that these spirits take it lightly when a Christian comes treading upon another entity's realm.
Right.
And yet that's that's the goal. That's the job description for those that would enter the kingdom of heaven, is to take the message into all the earth, right? Follow the Great Commission, regardless of the cost. And I wonder if your missionary friends don't see things better than we do. I mean, what's the worst? I think what they're thinking is what Paul said. Hey, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain.
Yeah.
What, you're going to threaten me with death? It's Polycarp, right? You threaten me with fire that will burn for an hour, Polycarp said. But you know nothing of the fire that will last for eternity.
Right.
And that's why I'm here, is to remind you of the fire that will last for eternity. And I love the stories of those in other countries trying to spread the gospel and do it reminds me of the Chinese missionary that said, we pray for you in America because we know how difficult it is to follow Jesus when you're not being persecuted.
Yeah.
When you're not being tested. So this has been good. Do me a favor. Why don't you close us in prayer? Oh, wait. Oh, no, I have to do the speed round. Nope, sorry. We're not done yet. I'm going to do the speed round, and then I'm going to ask you to close us in prayer.
Okay.
We'll call it a night. All right. So Apple or Android?
Apple.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Mavericks, Rangers, or Cowboys?
Rangers.
Chris Tomlin or Bill Gaither?
Bill Gaither.
Tie or no tie on Sunday morning for you?
A tie. A bow tie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Bow tie.
When you preach, notes or no notes?
Okay. How much time do I have?
What, on your sermon or to answer the
On
question?
my sermon.
Oh, it's a 30-minute sermon, right? 3 points in a poem?
Oh, no. No.
You go longer than that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then,
I enjoy the freedom of no notes, so let's go with no notes.
okay. Do you stand still or pace?
Oh, I pace.
COVID didn't teach you to stand still?
Oh, no.
Invitation each Sunday or as the Lord leads?
Every Sunday.
Mark Sasser, who will probably be, he's from Tennessee. I interviewed Mark. And he said one time, we were singing in his church, and he said, Chris, why would you cast a net in the water and not reel it in?
Yeah.
I thought that was good. All right. If people wanted to find out more about Mason Creek or the Loop campus of Woodland, how would they do that? How could they reach out to you, Nathan?
You can go to our website, whbchurch.org. If you Google Woodland Hills Baptist Longview, it will also pull up the website. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram as well. Facebook is both campuses. Instagram is just the Loop campus. And then me personally, you can find me on Facebook. You can see my my profile bio on our website as well, just to get connected, reach out. And then I actually have a podcast as well.
Oh, please. Yep.
And my father and I also started our own ministry. So my podcast is the Centered Podcast. My ministry partner with the podcast is Jordan Martinez. You can look us up at Get Centered. We're all over Spotify, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Apple podcast as well. And we've been doing that since this year. We just started season 2 of it. So, you can check us out there. And then my father and I started an evangelism speaking ministry called Mathias Ministries. Huh. And you can check us out at mathiasministries.org as well.
And what is the focal point of that? I didn't know this. I would have asked you about it.
So my dad spent 25 plus years in pastoral ministry and stepped away from it for a time and has felt led to get back into it, but not as a pastor, but as an evangelist. Okay. And I felt led just through dealing with COVID and everything. I felt led just to have a ministry that could be an encouragement. And so I actually started Mathias Ministries last year, just letting it be devotionals, encouragement, just sharing scriptures, just through YouTube and Facebook. And then when my dad surrendered to evangelism and wanted to get going, I just opened it up and said, well, Pops, would you consider just joining with Mathias Ministries and then let that be our frontline? So umbrella, he does the evangelism and then I take care of all the encouragement side of it.
Well, that's cool. You know. Well, that's neat. So, and what was the website again?
Mathias Ministries should be .org. But it's just a very simple, not a major thing or anything like that. Just super, super simple. We just want to encourage and share the gospel of Jesus.
Very cool. So, why don't you close us in prayer?
Yeah, I will. And thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Thanks for being a part of this. Has been fun.
Lord, again, we just come before you. God, we just thank you so much. Lord, I thank you for Chris and his family, and Lord, what they mean to me and my wife, but Lord, just what they mean to pastors and ministers and churches, Lord, as they just go around and continue to encourage and uplift, Lord, and bring you glory with everything that they do. God, I just pray right now that all those that have heard today's episode, would they be encouraged? I pray that they would maybe be inspired. But Lord, just even the moment, I pray that you get all the glory for everything. Lord, with what you're doing here at Woodland Hills, what you're doing with the McNeil family, but Lord, even ministries and churches across the globe, God, they're just listening to this. I pray that you would continue to do a mighty work. Lord, that your word says that you will build your church. God, that you will sustain, you will build, you will just do incredible things. And Lord, I pray, God, I just pray Ephesians 3:20 over us tonight. I pray over all those that listen to this, Lord, that greater than anything we could ask or think, according to your glory. God, I pray, dear Father, you would take our dreams and let it be focused into bringing you glory, but God, that you would use us in greater ways than we'd ever imagine. Lord, again, we thank you for this opportunity. Lord, we just pray for continued provision and blessings, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Nathan, thank you so much for being with us on this episode. Sure
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Ministry on the Move. I've been your host, Chris McNeil. To learn more about the McNeils, you can find us on the web at mcneilmusic.com, mcneilmusic.tv, themcneilproject.com, on Facebook at The McNeils, YouTube at The McNeils. We are on all of the usual suspects. God bless you. We'll see you next time. I thought the dryer was shrinking my clothes. Turns out it was the refrigerator all along.